I'm Dr. David Johnson, Professor of Medicine and Chief of Gastroenterology at Eastern Virginia Medical School in Norfolk, Virginia. Well, colon cancer prevention is really the ultimate goal of screening. Certainly we've seen the last several decades incremental emphasis on colon cancer screening, and we've seen the benefits as it relates to colonoscopy and risk reduction, primarily driven through adenoma detection and the risk reduction for colon cancer and interval cancers. And we've seen also an incremental rise in younger cancers, and this has really been highlighted in a paper that was just published in Nature Clinical Reviews Clinical Oncology, and they highlight the increasing younger cancers, not just in colon cancer, but breast cancer, renal, pancreas, esophageal cancer, but describe this as a global epidemic and recognizing that there are cancer changes that are moving into a population that we didn't previously screen before. Why is that? Well, there are lots of reasons beyond today's discussion, but primarily diet, obesity, the variety of things that epidemiologic exposures and sleep and variety of other exposures, but nonetheless recognize that increasing cancers are evident in the younger population. Now, that led the American Cancer Society in 2018, and then followed by the U.S. Multi-Society Task Force in 2021, the American College of Gastroenterology and the U.S. Multi-Society Task Force as it relates to colon cancer prevention screening, all to now recommend changing the interval from beginning average risk from 50 to 45. And this has certainly opened up an avenue for screening of another 19 million or so patients. So what are the recommendations going to mean for what do they prefer, which is really important because we can be the best as far as recommendations, but what do patients prefer? Somewhat alarming study that was just published from the group at UCLA looked at an online survey of 1,000 patients, cohorts 40 to 50, and then 50 and greater, and looked at the U.S. Multi-Society Task Force 5 recommendations, the multi-targeted stool DNA FIT test versus the colonoscopy versus colon capsule, which is not available for screening in the U.S. In average risk, colonoscopy every 10 years, FIT every year, and CT colonography every 5 years. And what they found is the preference was virtually consistent for not only the younger population as it relates to the multi-targeted stool DNA and FIT of 35% versus colonoscopy, which we would accept as the best gold standard for prevention at 13.7%, and the same as it relates to the older population over 50, and that recommendation was held at least 37% for the 40 to 49, and the same 13.6% for the colonoscopy. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that patients are starting to really acquiesce maybe to convenience rather than efficacy. Even choosing FIT versus colonoscopy, they were in favor of FIT, which is a stay-home test. 69% in the 40 to 49 done annually. It must be done annually with some type of regularity. And the colonoscopy was only 31% is what they'd select. And as it relates to the greater than 50, it was 77% versus 22.6%. What does this mean? I think we're losing some ground as it relates to our messaging, and certainly one study doesn't mean all, but it certainly is a wake-up call perhaps to clinical practices, to national societies, to clinics and organizations, and in particular medical organizations, that we need to be reaching out to the millennials and certainly to the patients that are not yet screened, and making sure that they understand that colonoscopy is the only test that we have that's preventive. Recognize that even the multi-targeted stool DNA misses 60% of advanced lesions, and the FIT misses 95% of advanced lesions as it relates to sessile serrated polyps. That's almost within the element of chance when you talk about a 5% detection rate. We need to start looking at what we've done and our messaging going forward, because I'm not sure that the conventional, they'll come to us because colonoscopy is the best test, will sustain the best screening strategies going forward. The best screening strategy obviously is the one that gets tests done, but the one that gets the best screening is the one that prevents colon cancer. We need to start looking at this very strongly and revise our messages, our marketing messages, our social media, and our educational campaigns around some of these new perspectives. Some of this may be tainted a little bit by the COVID 2 years of stay home, stay away from procedures, but regardless, it's a wake-up call, and we need to take perspective and put this into action plan. Otherwise, we're going to lose further ground. I'm concerned about this information, and hopefully you understand that you should be too. Dr. David Johnson, thanks again for listening.